Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Bleed Norwich YouTube channel. We have a very, very special video. We're joined with EFL editor from Sky Sports, Simeon Gholam. Simeon, how are you today, mate?
Hello, nice to be here, mate. Great to be here. How are you? You okay?
Yeah, all good. I mean, football is a lot better than what it was at the start of the season. And in
Yeah.
this video, we are going to sort of have a bit of an overview of Norwich's season so far, because who better to have on to sort of look from the outside into Norwich than Simeon? Simeon, what have you made of Norwich's season so far?
Started not great. I think that'd be fair to say. It was unfortunate. I know Liam Manning was obviously it's always difficult when a manager goes from one club to another club at the same level, I think, because it always has that little bit of contention, and obviously that leads to that little bit more pressure for a manager to succeed. I know it didn't end well for him here. Obviously, I know some managers on a slightly different level to fans, and I wanted it to work for Liam just because I've met him, I know him, I interviewed him a long time ago when he was back in League One, and he's just a nice guy, and obviously he's been through a lot in his personal life and stuff. So I kind of, from a personal perspective, I was rooting for him because I wanted it to work for him there, but obviously it didn't, and things were really, really poor. And to be fair, I think he lasted longer than he probably should have based on the results. Just kind of, there was that period where there were a lot of times where it was like, it can't go on like this, can it? And it felt like that was kind of going on forever, and it was inevitable in the end that he would go. And obviously things have massively improved since. And yeah, it's just one of those things really where it's sort of it obviously it started really, really badly, but now you guys look in really, really good shape. You look a really good team. Obviously covered the game, watched it on Monday night when he beat Coventry, and it's just it just suddenly there are a lot of threats, a lot of weapons everywhere, and it's looking a lot more positive for you guys now than it was before. And I think the main thing to say is I don't think anyone you're still down in the wrong end of the table, but I don't think anyone is looking at Norwich as a potential relegation candidate anymore, which is considering where you were a few weeks ago is a very, very good thing.
Yeah, no, it's been a massive turnaround. Sort of the start of the season seems like many, many years ago now, but albeit it's only been about 4 months that Philippe Clement has been at the helm at Norwich. But if we do go back to the start of the season, a lot happened in the summer transfer window with Norwich fans, and I think the main one was Marcelino Nunez heading to Ipswich Town. Obviously, that saga all came out, and then we had obviously Ben Napper's interviews coming out where he said he was happy about the sale and would do it again. And then we had Atanasio on local radio, our owner, saying that it was a massive own goal. What did you make of that whole saga?
I mean, it was all a bit of a mess, wasn't it? You're never going to be able to as a PR move, you're never going to be able to kind of play that off well with Norwich fans. There are some things that are just kind of beyond money and beyond the fee, and that's obviously one of them selling to your rivals, Ipswich Town. But I still do think I think he's a good player, but I do think he did get a good fee for him. But obviously that doesn't really matter much. Obviously the noise around it. I mean, especially from Marcelino himself and some of the things he'd said and done, and obviously the way he kind of behaved after the Derby win and that type of thing. I just don't think there's any way to really play it off, and I think Ben Napper might have potentially just said a little bit too much than he should have done. I think he could have done himself a favour just by just being honest and saying they came in with an offer we couldn't refuse, kind of thing, rather than trying to kind of overspin it, I guess. But obviously, problem is with these things with a big segment of support, and it's the passionate segment of support, which is why we all love football so much. Is it's one of those things where you're never there's no way you're going to be able to ever like make certain fans happy in that situation. There's nothing you can really say. It's like the sort of the deed's already done, and you can't spin it back into a positive thing for them as far as they see it, And it's just, but yeah, it wasn't ideal. But I do think you got decent money for him, and if he didn't want to be at the club anymore, as another player we might talk about later on, it's one of those things where the level you're at, you've kind of just got to take the money from wherever it comes from and run and try and build your team again with it, I suppose.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think Ipswich fans are absolutely loving Marcelino Nunez, not just for the, I guess, shithousery that he's caused, but more so for the performances that he's put in. He's been a fantastic player for them, and Norwich really sort of missed that creative midfield spark earlier in the season.
Yeah, what I will
Obviously,
say is obviously the problem is a Premier League club are never going to come in for him based on what they'd say. He wasn't at that level, I don't think. And Ipswich are the club with the money in the Championship this season. So it was kind of, I wouldn't say it's inevitable, but you weren't going to get that size of a fee from anywhere else, like literally anywhere else, unless maybe Southampton, or I mean Leicester haven't got any money. So unless Southampton had come sniffing around, then it was literally it was Ipswich or nothing for a fee that size for him, I think. So it's just it's just unfortunate that they're obviously your biggest rivals.
Yeah, no, like you say, the fee was. I mean, if you look financially, it is a very, very good fee. And if any other club, offered that, would be sort of snapping their hands off. But yeah, like you say, it's sort of that tribalism of football where it's selling to your arch rivals. Just sort of it's just a non-negotiable. It can't happen. We will touch on Josh Sargent just a little bit later, but Ben Napper was obviously under a lot of scrutiny throughout the first half of the season. Seems to have revived himself a bit with the January transfer signing so far. What's your take on Ben Napper as a sporting director?
I've never actually met him or spoken to him, so I can only speak from what I've seen from the outside. And obviously, he's he talks a lot, which I don't think is always a good thing. I think I miss an era of football where you didn't know who people in the upstairs were, if that makes sense. I mean, I'm 36 years old, so I remember kind of football in the 90s and early noughties, and back then the only person anyone had ever heard of from a boardroom perspective was Peter Kenny at Man United, who then went to Chelsea. He was like the everyone else you didn't have a clue, and I feel like part of modern football now is people knowing the ins and outs of every working club, and I do feel like he talks a little bit too much. I think that kind of is what again, I'm not a Norwich fan. I don't follow the ins and outs every day of the club, and I understand the frustrations of Norwich fans of him. But from an outside perspective, I do feel like he kind of maybe just talks about he puts himself in a bit too much of a prominent role in terms of how he kind of like steers and leads the club. And I feel like he thinks he's doing it in a way to kind of front up, but I often think it's almost doing too much. And I think he talks about himself a lot and his role and the way, this type of thing. And I just feel like he could do with maybe taking a bit more of a backward step in those types of things and maybe just kind of focusing on what he's actually supposed to be doing on a day to day. I mean, he's not going to sack himself, is he? I know you see the Napper out stuff everywhere on every Norwich post on social media, and no, I don't think anyone's ever sacked themselves in the history of the human race. It's just not things that happen realistically. So he's kind of there, and he's made a bit of a rod for his own back at times. But I mean, he seems to have at least the most recent appointment, Philippe Clement, is not someone I expect to see in the Championship. I think he's been obviously brilliant for you so far, and he made some really, really good signings in January window. So maybe it is either it's been like a fortunate few months where the dice he keeps rolling has actually landed on six a few times in a row, and he's kind of taken the heat off in that way, or he's actually just kind of it's just a longer term plan, or maybe some signings. I think there is an element with obviously a lot of it is down to recruitment, and when you are recruiting the way Norwich do, it's very, very rare for it to be like no club recruits perfectly. I mean, you look at Brentford and Brighton, who are like the models for it, and even they make mistakes. And obviously, at a club like Norwich, you're dealing in you have to kind of maybe take a few more slight gambles with when you're making kind of these cheap signings from abroad to see what works out and stuff. And but it is then quite jarring for I imagine Norwich fans when you look at what the team was 2 years ago, and then you look at the starting lineup on the first day of the season. I remember because I take most of the summer off, and then I don't follow a huge amount of the transfer window in June and July, and then I come back in to work. And then I do remember looking at the Norwich team and thinking, who are all these players? Like genuinely, I was just like, who are all these people? It was just like I felt like it was just Josh Sargent and then just nine just random assortments of names that I'd never heard of, and I was just like, it was a bit strange. But I think that's just the inevitability of the level where then you sign someone like Ali Ahmed, who has just been absolutely brilliant so far, and that could be just that's another a left field signing someone brought in from Vancouver, and it's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes, I suppose.
Yeah, no, the recruitment is sort of been a massive part of it, but under Philippe Clement, it's sort of Ben Napper's taken less scrutiny for the recruitment because those players that were underperforming under Liam Manning, the likes of Pella Matson and so to speak, have upped their level and have looked like very competent championship footballers. Do you think it was sort of that those were Ben Napper's signings in the summer rather than Liam Manning's and just didn't suit his system, maybe?
I mean, you'd assume so because that's the structure, isn't it? That's. I mean, I imagine Liam Manning was brought in, and he was. I imagine he's on he's not part of the thing, but it's not like the old days where the manager was like instrumental in every part of the club. It's like these are your players, and just the fact of the matter is, for whatever reason, Liam Manning couldn't get the best out of what he was doing, and I think it just. But then obviously there are more kind of inscrutable things. Like obviously, things didn't start that well, and then the confidence drains away, and then you see it all the time. And once a squad, especially with the home record, it's just once you kind of go into every game thinking you're going to lose, you're going to lose those games. And there were so many games where you were leading or you had a good first half, and it just went wrong. And that's a confidence thing as well. That's a belief thing. That's a something. It's more indefinable. Not something you can go to Opta and ask about. It's just something that's a very much a mental, emotional thing more than a statistical thing, I suppose. And obviously, once a team is performing better, the sporting director of football, whatever, I can't remember what Ben Napper's actual job title is, but in terms of that kind of thing, it's obviously they're going to take less heat because things are going well on the pitch, and that's always the way with results. I mean, you look at fan bases are so fickle. I mean, you look at Sheffield United, Patrick Bamford, he was public enemy number one at Bramall Lane about 3 months ago, and now he's like, I did an interview with Bamford, I posted it. It was just Sheffield United fans being like, God, I love that bloke. And it was like, imagine that 3 months ago, he was like the most hated man in that part of Sheffield. And it's like with me, for example, I'm a Brighton fan. And obviously, about 12, 13 years ago, my least favourite human being in the world was Glenn Murray because he left us for Crystal Palace and helped get them promoted. And then he came back to Brighton, scored a bunch of goals, and then I love him again. It's just the way it is with football. It's just things change and your opinion changes depending on the way things are going. And that's not to say there's no heat on Ben Napper anymore, but obviously results on the pitch are going to take scrutiny off that position and those roles, I suppose. And obviously, it helps as well that you've made a few signings that have actually turned out to be quite good, like Ali Ahmed, as I mentioned already. Obviously, Jovon Makama, who I'm sure we'll get onto as well, who's obviously signed in the summer, and he's been an absolute revelation for you guys so far.
Yeah, no, yeah, fully agree. Yeah, football fans can be fickle. I think Norwich fans definitely are probably one of the most fickle fan bases out there. I remember protests outside the ground about 3 months ago, and now it's a cauldron of noise inside Carrow Road, and yeah, no, it's a fantastic atmosphere to be around. And I think that's mainly down to Philippe Clement. He's been a revelation for Norwich fans, and he's been fantastic. I mean, since he's come in, Norwich are the fifth most informed side in the league. They're sitting 11 points off playoffs on an incredibly good run. Do you believe that Norwich fans can dare to dream?
I I want to say yes because I'm on a Norwich YouTube video, and that'd be the right thing to do. But I do feel like when you do start looking and you start thinking, oh, if we won, 4 or 5 in a row, be right up there. But I think the gap is a little bit too big for this stage of the season. We haven't got that many games left, and you're looking at generally it's what 70. You need over 70 points to have a chance. Realistically, I think Bristol City snuck in with under 70 last season. I can't remember exactly, but generally, so sorry. Sorry, we've got these roofs in there that open randomly every half an hour. Uh, oh, sorry. Yeah, no, I've lost my train of thought. Yeah, no, I think it's a little bit of a step too far. I think you have to put slightly too big a run together. I think you're looking at 7, 8 wins in a row at this point, which you know not impossible, but I think quite unlikely for any team to really. You look at the amount of teams you have to get through. It's not just getting the amount of points; it's getting 11 more points than all those teams as well over the next 16, 17 games, which I think is just a little bit unrealistic. But all you can really do is kind of put yourself in the mix and see what happens and just keep performing and keep winning games. You never know. But for me at this stage, I'm going to say I think it's probably a little bit too much to do. But dare to dream. I'm wrong quite regularly, so I'll probably be wrong about this as well.
Yeah, that's the thing with football fans. It is the hope that kills. Obviously, January has rolled around. I think the big news around Norwich is Josh Sargent removed himself from the matchday squad against Walsall due to transfer speculation. What do you make of this situation, and do you think he will go? Because Philippe Clement has said on multiple occasions that Sargent will not leave this transfer window.
Yeah, I think it's again. Josh is someone I've interviewed a few times, and I quite like him. I can understand the panic he's feeling in terms of what's coming up in the summer for him. That's it. Obviously, this is Norwich fans are looking from a Norwich perspective, trying to look at it from Josh Sargent's perspective in terms of he's not been in great form, and he's probably worried that it's not just a World Cup; it's a World Cup in your home country, and this is like it's playing a World Cup once in a lifetime. Playing a World Cup in your own nation is like it's something that most people could only dream about. So you can kind of understand the panic and that's he's obviously gone about things in the wrong way, but obviously we've also seen in the not too distant past that sometimes throwing your toys out is the best way to get a move. And he's probably thought, I've got a few weeks to sort this out and get myself back off to the MLS, hopefully score some goals and try and get myself into the World Cup squad. And you can kind of understand it. Obviously, from a Norwich City perspective, you kind of, it's not what you want to see. But I feel like Philippe Clement, from a Norwich perspective, has dealt with it brilliantly because he's under contract, and unless Norwich get the right fee, and we've seen in the past over and over again, if Norwich get the right fee, then they will generally sell. And obviously, luckily for Norwich as well, is you're in a kind of a good position in that you've got his replacement there already doing really, 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 really well. So there's no real reason to sell. I mean, I think he probably will go before the end of the window. I just have a feeling that obviously you'll play hardball and wait till the end of the window and see if someone stumps up the money, because Norwich have all the bargaining power here. You've got a player who's desperate to leave. You've got, but no reason to sell him, and you don't. He's not essential to your squad in a way he was probably a few months ago. So yeah, but I do feel like he will probably go before the end of the window. Not That's not based on anything I know. That's just based on my own suspicion. I just feel like if money comes in and it's just like you may as well. You might as well sort of part company with him now. You're not really a fear of relegation anymore. You're kicking on uphill. You've got good attacking options now, so I don't see why you wouldn't. But it is a shame to see, because obviously he's been such a good player for you guys for so long. It's never nice when there's a parting of ways like this. But as you've seen with Marcelino Nunez, these things often don't end very happily in these situations, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think the feeling amongst the Norwich fan base is that he has very much tarnished his own legacy just by the way he's acted, which is a real shame. Like you say, Josh Sargent's been a fantastic player for Norwich, and yeah, I mean, I think a lot of Norwich fans are in the same boat in terms of they do want to see the back of him. We don't want a player in and around sort of the dressing room. Not that he's going to be in the squad much, but that doesn't want to be there, and hopefully get a good, like you say, get a decent fee for him, get a replacement in, which could be Kasper Hogue from Bodo Glimt, which is looking like the leading rumour so far. But like you say, Norwich do have an oven-ready, ripe Championship replacement ready to take Josh Sargent's mantle, Jovon Makama, who you recently interviewed as well. I mean, a lot of Norwich fans, we obviously don't speak to footballers that often and don't get the pleasure, but he seems like a very humble, down-to-earth guy. Would you say he comes across like that as well?
Yeah, 100%. He seems like a really, really lovely kid. I interviewed him last season when he was in Lincoln City. And I'll admit, last season I follow League One and Two. I don't watch a huge amount of the games just because it's just there's a lot of football on and it's hard to follow everything. But obviously I'd seen he was doing well. I interviewed him. I'll be honest, I had no idea when I spoke to him the first time how good he was, and the kind of profile he was. I mean, he's very young, he's very raw, but his profile's unbelievable. The size of the kid, honestly, the size of him, the strength he has, the running power is just like, he must be an absolute nightmare for defenders to deal with. And obviously, it kind of worked out, I think, in your favour that you talk a lot about Clement, but obviously the Southampton win was the one that kind of triggered the upturn you guys have had. And obviously, that was the game where Josh Sargent missed out because I think he had concussion or something. And Makama, who'd played a lot, either as a substitute or as a wide player, which he can play, was switched to up front, and he scored twice in that game. Bit of contention about one of the goals. I think he basically punched it in. But he was brilliant in that game, and it kind of, he has since taken on that role and just been absolutely superb. And I think it's helped you guys. It's helped the balance of the team that you haven't got him out wide anymore. You got him through the middle. You're playing two more kind of natural players. Players are more in their positions, and he's just like leading the line superbly. And he's just like, I think he's just. I think the sky's the limit for the kid, just based on the kind of the raw attributes he has. And I feel like Philippe Clement must just think he's landed on his absolute feet with him, because he's got him, and he told me that he has a bit. Philippe Clement can be a bit tough love with him, just in terms of, because I think he knows what he is genuinely capable of, just in terms of a player that size who's got all those physical attributes. But often with those types of players from the lower leagues, is the thing that is then lacking, is the finishing. But he's got a proper eye for goal as well, and he is absolutely. I mean, there's talk of, there's already, like, lurking interest in him. He'll be fine this window, but if he keeps going the way he is, the summer might be a worry for him. But he's just, honestly, and with such a dearth of number nines just everywhere at the moment, I think he is a proper prospect going forward. And he's just a great kid as well. Big fan of him.
Yeah, Norwich fans, I think, are all in the same boat. They absolutely adore the bloke. And it's not just his goal scoring rate that is so impressive this season. It's just his overall number nine play. In the last two games, he hadn't scored, but he's so effective up against centre halves. He's an absolute nightmare. He gave Liam Kitching and Bobby Thomas an absolute nightmare in that second half against Coventry. I mean, yeah, he's got it all, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, the lot, as I said, there just seems a lack of number nines at the moment, and I think with the way football's moved, especially in the Championship more recently than the Premier League in terms of teams playing one up front, I think centre backs have started getting an easier and easier ride in terms of the physical battles, the stuff they have to deal with when you've got one guy up front that you're dealing with. Whereas he is again, he can hold you off in a physical battle and he can spin you and run behind you. And it's just like there's not many players who can do both of those things. And that must just be that. I think that's why what led to the mistake from Kitchen on Monday night was just the kind of just the pressure he put them under all night, and just knowing that you can hold a high line and he'll run behind you. You can sit low and he'll beat you to a header, or hold you off and spin you and score. We've seen him score a couple of goals like that as well, and it just yeah, it's frightening really. It must be an absolute nightmare to play against.
Yeah, no, he's. I mean, he's a joy to watch for Norwich fans, and it's so refreshing to see opposition fans saying like they hate playing against Makama now. So it's great to know that we've got a player like that on our books. But during sort of Norwich's run under Clement, what has sort of been the key sort of changes that you've seen from what it was like under Manning?
I mean, a lot of it is just it's belief. A lot of it is just belief. I mean, you saw that the frailty in those first few months, just especially after the first few weeks. It was the home run that killed you in the end, and just kind of, and then once you're not winning games at home, it puts pressure on picking up results away, and it all just you could just see how frail the squad was as soon as they conceded a goal, as soon as they fell behind. It was just like this is it. I mean, you saw Norwich on Monday night. That was not sorry, Coventry on Monday night. That was the first time he'd won from behind since a year ago when he played Coventry, wasn't it? So just it just goes to show when it's a year since you've won a game from behind, it just shows the mentality of a team once they fall behind, and that was sort of built in, I suppose, at the back end of last season and bled badly and quickly into this season as well. And I think a lot of it is just obviously pieces are falling into place. Like we've talked about Makama moving up front. Obviously, there have been some good additions as well, a tweak here and there. But in general, I think it's just like it's just mentality. It's a pure mentality, and I think it's a really it can be an overlooked thing in modern football when there's so much focus on data and stats and stuff when it is just a less fragile thing. And it didn't happen straight away. It took a little bit of time, didn't it? But you could tell that was building in. You could again, it's easy to read into the way a manager speaks and the authority, but there's just something about Clement who's just I feel like he wouldn't put up with that. And he's talked a lot about putting that belief back into players. And obviously at the end of the day, with all these things that only comes with wins. And it took maybe sometimes like the result against Southampton where you were good, but you've got that little bit of luck where the winning goal obviously went in off the player's hand. And that's the kind of thing that maybe wasn't happening at the start of the season. And sometimes you can just grab a moment like that and just build off it. And then obviously when you had a lot of games coming in December and you have less time to think about it, you just got to keep going. And it's just been building and building from there. And then obviously the win at West Brom came at the perfect time because West Brom were just dreadful at that point, and you kind of got that massive win and took you out of the bottom three, which again is such a big thing in football to be above that dotted line for any club. That it lifts everything. And now suddenly you were in the relegation zone 2 weeks ago. And now you've just asked me a question about whether you can make the playoffs or not, which kind of sums up how quickly things can change.
Yeah, that's the beauty of football, I guess, isn't it? But let's talk about a few players. Obviously, Makama has been one that we've spoke about. Has there been any other sort of standouts this season for Norwich?
I'm a big fan of Callum Fisher. I think he's a really, really, really good young player. He's just a really, really just impressive, hardworking. And again, he's someone who's come from a bit of a different background in terms of coming through kind of, the lower leagues. And I interviewed him last season. I think he came through Sunday League football. It's not like he's dropped down from Premier League Academy or anything like that. And I think he was a really, really good find, and he's really, really established himself. He's just he's really, really solid defensively, really, really good going forward as well. Yeah, and then just I mean, obviously, again, Ali Ahmed he's just arrived and just been an absolute revelation. Ben Slimani's been brilliant the last few weeks. It's just looking positive, really. I like the goalkeeper as well. I think he looks like a goalkeeper, and he looks like he's got that authority and that presence about him, which is always very, very helpful. But yeah, it's just a lot positive. Just a
Yeah,
lot of a lot just yeah, a lot that's just looking really, really good for you guys at the moment to hopefully build, have a positive end of the season, and hopefully carry that into next season.
That's the thing. It's very strange now compared to the start of the season where all Norwich fans are just very, very positive about the whole squad and every single player that sort of puts on that Norwich shirt at the minute. If we go to sort of to the transfer window this January, obviously we brought in Ali Ahmed and recently signed Harry Amas and Paris Magoma. Ali Ahmed's come out the blocks flying. How do you think Amas and Magoma will settle in at Norwich?
Amas, I think, will be good. He's obviously got that bit of experience in the championship from early in the season with Sheffield Wednesday. Makoma, I don't know a huge amount about, if I'm being perfectly honest. I feel like he's shown some positivity in the past. He's shown some good things, some flashes here and there. But in terms of maybe his consistent level in the championship, I think he's got a way to go to kind of prove he's got that in him. But I think he could very well. I mean, I know a fan, I know a guy, one of my best friends at work, is one of my colleagues here. He's a big Brentford fan, and he basically told me that he's a really good player. He just kind of didn't work out for him. Brentford, he never really got that kind of that run or those chances he needed. And generally, Brentford are one of those clubs where if they sign someone, there's generally a reason for it, and they've seen something in him. So you never know. It could be one that it works out really, really well in the future. Whether he gets a huge, I don't know if he'll get a huge amount of starts in now and in the season. He'll be involved in squads and stuff. But it looks like you've got a pretty good 11 at the moment.
Yeah, it looks pretty
Or
set, the 11.
kind of yeah, that is it might be hard to break into. Amas is obviously a different one because he can he's a bit more versatile and he can he I imagine he wouldn't have left Sheffield Wednesday and gone somewhere else if he wasn't planning on playing pretty regularly in the starting 11 because otherwise it would be a strange move for him. There are plenty of clubs he could have gone to in the championship that would have given him 90 minutes every week. So it's just it's one, but you never know. It's no one's guaranteed these things, but I think he might be someone who obviously has a bit more of an impact between now and the end of the season.
Yeah, definitely agree on Amas being versatile. It's very strange. Obviously, we all thought he's an out and out left back, and he gets subbed on at right wing on Monday night, which was very strange. But he held his own out there and was very good off the bench. But just to finish up here, Simeon, what do you think could be Norwich's aspirations for the remainder of the season? Should it be just mid-table, make sure we stay up and be safe? Could it be further, or is it just survival?
I mean, you've got a survival. I don't think is even a question. I had no doubt in my mind that there are. Well, I mean, we don't say three worst teams because Sheffield Wednesday are basically, we kind of factor them out this season. But there's definitely two worse teams than you this season, and there's no chance someone would have to go really, really wrong in the next couple of months for you to get dragged in. I think you just got to keep pushing. And I know I've already said I don't think the playoffs are achievable. I think you just have. It's just too difficult to go on that long a run in this league, I don't think. But I think you just got to, the key thing is just to keep pushing, keep that kind of positivity, that mentality going, finish as strongly as possible, and use that as a kind of so you have a more positive summer. So you don't have, you guys can go into the summer and maybe relax a little bit and not be talking about the director of football, not be talking about the questionable recruitment, and just have that really genuine optimism going into next season that you guys will be back at the part of the league you belong in, and that's the most important thing. And the other thing is obviously to beat Ipswich when they come to your place as well. That's I'd say that's probably priority number one. But I do think I mean you've got to keep going because you never know. But I do think the playoffs are a little bit beyond you. But it's just about finishing as strong as you can, getting as the top half of the table, just pushing on and just seeing what can happen really.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Simeon, thank you very much for coming on the Bleed Norwich channel today. Make sure you like and subscribe and go follow Simeon on all his socials. Always sort of clips from his interviews across the EFL are all on there. They're definitely worth a look. And we'll see you in the next one.